Hi, my name is Alana Gross, and this is my final exam for psychology in the courts.
Could you please state your full legal name for the record?
Alana Jacqueline Gross.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please describe for the court your educational background.
I've received a master's degree from Walden University in forensic psychology and a doctorate in psychology from Argosy University.
And how many times have you been asked to be an expert witness?
21 times.
And how much are you getting paid for your testimony today?
I'm not being paid for my testimony and being paid for my time. However, my fee is $400 an hour.
Did you perform an evaluation on Mr. Bumble?
Yes, I did.
And why were you asked to perform the evaluation?
I was asked to declare competency to stand trial.
What legal definition is applicable to the referral question that you addressed when assessing Mr. Bumble?
I used the Dusky standard to answer the referral question, which states that a defendant should have the current ability to consult with their attorney with a reasonable degree of rational understanding, as well as rational and factual understanding of the proceedings against him.
And what procedures and/or tests did you perform during your evaluation?
I performed the Welsher Adult Intelligence Scale, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Test, the Rorschach Inkblock Test, the Personality Assessment Inventory, the Bender Motor Gestalt Test, the Bender Motor Gestalt Test Immediate Recall, the Ray's 15-item test, the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, and the Structured Interview of Reported Symptoms. I also interviewed the defendant and videotaped a mental status interview as well as a history interview. I consulted with the prosecuting attorney as well as the defense attorney to gather additional documentation.
Excellent. And what were the results of your evaluation?
I found that the defendant scored extremely low in most areas concerning verbal comprehension. Although these scores were higher than the scores he received in nonverbal reasoning skills, his visual information processing, and memory, his working memory. But these don't really apply to the referral question. The defendant also demonstrated personality traits that showed severe emotional distress. These were displayed through characteristics such as apathy, hopelessness, fearfulness, abnormal depression, and inability to experience pleasure. He's highly suspicious and has a psychotic thought process and is more prone to suicidal ideations. He has very poor judgment and often mistakes impressions, which leads him to not understand the consequences of his actions.
Do you believe Mr. Bumble is competent or not competent to stand trial, and what are your reasonings?
I do not believe that he is competent to stand trial. I think that he is unable to realistically plan a defense or effectively communicate with his attorney due to his psychotic symptoms. His paranoia has left him unable to provide factual information to his attorney, and as well as made him make claims against his attorney, such as that his attorney is a drug dealer. He also is just unable to plan a strategy or plan in his defense, so he would not be able to participate in the process.
And have you arrived at a diagnosis for Mr. Bumble?
Yes, I have.
And what would that be?
I would diagnose him as a schizophrenia paranoid type, chronic. He also suffers from psychosocial issues and environmental issues regarding his interactions with the legal system and crime.
And could you please describe for the court the reasonings for that diagnosis?
Mr. Bumble demonstrates characteristics of schizophrenia such as paranoid delusions, auditory hallucinations, and the occasional disorganized speech. These symptoms have been present in the defendant for most of his adult life, which is why the indicator of chronic has been added to the diagnosis. He also lacks the ability to complete any goal-directed activities.
Is that diagnosis considered to be a mental disease or defect?
Yes, it is.
And why?
The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 4th edition, declares schizophrenia a psychotic disorder. So because of his hallucinations and delusions, I would classify it as a mental disease.
Do you believe Mr. Bumble understands the proceedings here today?
No, I do not.
And why not?
He does not seem to understand completely what the roles of the persons who participate in the legal process actually do.
Do you think that Mr. Bumble understands what he is charged with?
Yes, I do.
And why?
Mr. Bumble seems to understand that he's at court today because he acted in self-defense, and he seems to understand the severity of the problem and what penalties could exist.
Do you feel that Mr. Bumble can work with his attorney to successfully defend himself?
No, I do not.
Why not?
As mentioned earlier, I do not believe that his psychotic symptoms allow him to provide factual information to his attorney, as well as his inability to understand the roles of the persons in the proceedings.
Ms. Gross, at this time, is there any other information about Mr. Bumble that you feel would be helpful to the court?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. You may please step down.